Alright, let's see what we can do with this dude here. Are you tired of losing at chess? Well, that's why I'm working on these problems. Looks like rook checks, bishop takes, queen takes, king h8, rook cannot go to d7. That would not work because it's checkmate. So, let's look at this again. Super bizarre. However, we could play e6 after that. Rook checks, bishop takes, queen takes, e6. Oh, no, we just checkmate him. What the heck was I thinking? Queen g7 is checkmate. Kablamo. So, yeah, he couldn't take it. Look at check. He's got... Good question. Well, now we could do that deflection. We could deflect his bishop with rook to d7 check. King to h8. Well, I mean, if he takes it, he's just annihilated. Well, actually, he actually isn't annihilated, but he would be. I don't know. Rook d7 is not working. So, that was a bizarre move. Let's look and see. Does I got anything better? Well, the basic rook g7 is good. I just couldn't see a follow. Oh, I guess the follow-up is queen to f5 and mating him on h7. That is the move. So he goes to h8, queen to f5. He literally has one check, or he can put his queen on this diagonal. We take it, and then eventually we're going to play queen h7 mate. There's nothing he can do. So that's the dealio. Now, oh, this is some basic stuff, man. Bishop takes knight. If he plays pawn takes bishop or queen takes bishop, we just play knight takes bishop. So that's pretty terrible. Now, if I go bishop takes knight, he could play bishop takes pawn. And then bishop takes queen, king takes bishop. The desperado, he loses. Okay, we'll just take this piece. And we'll just retreat here. Boing. Oh, baby, you're dog meat. My other videos, you'll see this. I always look to go to the king and pawn ending. So rook checks, king f5, rook takes, pawn takes, king to here. Guess what? He can never reach the square of my pawn because he has to get to d4 before I move. And the best you can do is e4. So he loses right here. Nope, you got to be in d4, sonny. Square of the pawn, baby. Works every time. Well, there you go. Quick and easy. I mean, these are low-rated problems, so it's not a big deal. But look at this again. Okay. When you're sitting here in the end game, one of the things about end games is that in the back of your mind, when you do once you've done the preparation and the study of king and pawn endings, is that the things that dominate king and pawn endings are the square of the pawn. I'm inside the square of this pawn. It's a 4 square here, which is, h8, e8, e5, h5. I'm in the square, so that pawn never queens on its own. If I can get in front of the pawn, which will be, when I take the rook, it'll go from the h to the g file. So a g8, when the king gets the g8, there's nothing he can do. The square of the pawn for black is A4 to A1 to D1 to D4. So, as I said, he's going to stop this pawn, his king must hit the D4 square or any of the other ones. But this is the square that's the closest to him. He has to hit the D4 square before I move. Otherwise, he got to E4 or he got to E5, same difference. You got one square away from this square, but one move is enough to win. Whether you win by 1 or 100, the victory counts the same. So that's why I looked at this, and as I was going to get to, the point is, in the end game, you need to always keep in the back of your mind, either if you're defending or if you're pressing the advantage of, you've got to watch for the ability to transfer from a piece ending to a pure pawn ending, which is what I did right off the bat. I always look at, hey, can I trade? I have a huge advantage. And okay, I mentioned the fundamentals of the king and pawn ending. The number one would be the square of the pawn, I would say. The number two would be the distant passed pawn. And in this case, that refers to distant being farthest away from the defender's king. So I have both a distant passed pawn and a pawn whose square cannot be entered by the king if black plays properly. So these are the two key elements for king and pawn endgames. And both of these are in my favor. That's why I looked at this. The first thing I looked for is, can I trade rooks? And then I did the basic calculation, which you saw. I do it. He goes here. I take, pawn checks. King goes in front. Now the best you can do is king e5, but he has to get to d4. Since he can't get to d4 before it's my turn to move the pawn, he lost. And you saw that. We'll go through it one more time. Going for the trade for the piece end game, go right to the pawn end game. Now, the best you can do is e5, and you see that if he doesn't move into the square before the pawn moves, he's toast. You lose. There's no player on earth that could stop me from winning. I'm going to play there. He's just one move behind. That's too bad. So, that was terrific. But this is how you do it. So, piece endgames transfer to pawn endgames. You have to watch it when you're defending, and you have to look for the opportunity when you're pressing your advantage. So hopefully this helped you guys out. It'll help you stop losing games, I'm going to tell you. So check out those other videos and you'll do much better. Thanks a lot.